This is Groove Talk with FrogE Style.
Welcome to another episode of Groove Talk, everybody. On this episode, I am joined by Ben and Kwasi, and they both make music under the moniker Howells. That is correct? I got that right?
Yep.
Yeah?
Nailed it, my
Awesome. So just before we get into this, why don't you guys kind of introduce yourselves, tell us what you do in the band, and maybe give us a little bit of background information?
Sure. So I'm Ben. I basically started releasing music under the name Howells when I was learning how to produce, and had some songs I had written. I want to get those out into the world, and I now do some of the writing. We are pretty evenly. We all kind of contribute now.
Yeah.
When we're writing the songs and stuff. But I do the guitar and vocals, and I write lyrics and stuff, and then I do some of the production as well, which my man Kwasi here helps a bunch with. Woo-hoo. So I'll let you introduce yourself, Kwasi.
Cool. Yeah. I'm Kwasi. I am kind of the newest member to the band. I can't even remember now. Has it been a year yet? I feel like it was last February.
Yeah, I think it was.
Or this February.
Like really early this year you joined.
Yeah, so it's crazy. It feels like it's been way longer, but I mean, COVID's kind of made everything feel like it's a time warp.
It does.
But yeah, like I came in as the bass player. I knew our other members, the other Ben and Jordan. Yeah. We got two Bens, go figure. So,
yeah.
But I knew Ben and Jordan from way back in the day, and we used to jam together. And then I got a text, and it's just like, hey, like, you want to come join this band? And it's like, you know what? Why not? Why not? Like, we'll give it a try. And then I met Howells here, and it was just awesome, you know.
Yeah, it was
a chance to.
It was like immediately worked, which was great. Like, because we didn't know what we were gonna do. We had lost our other bassist. He just like was kind of wanting to just chill and do his own thing. So Kwasi came up, and it was just like a perfect fit, and it was super helpful as well because like we had a bunch of technological things that we had to figure out in terms of how we're gonna do our live shows, because we have backtracks and stuff we ran with, and you are super tech savvy, and like immediately helped us figure pretty much all that out. And we had to get some gear that we didn't know about, and basically Kwasi's just like, I figured it all out immediately. Here we go. So that was a godsend. So
I don't know. It's just kind of my jam. I grab a piece of technology, and it's like, okay, let's see, how do we make this work? And well, usually when I grab a piece of technology, it's like, okay, I'm told it can do this. Yeah. What are all of the other things that it's not supposed to be able to do that I can do with it? So it's typically how things go. But you know, in the long run, we're getting stuff together. Like we got a backtrack show synchronized with lights that's coming up. So our live set is going to be mint.
Yeah, I'm really stoked for when live shows are a thing again.
Yeah,
I never know what to say when people ask me like who plays bass and stuff. Because like, well, Kwasi plays bass, but he also plays lights, and he also plays technology and the computer and produces. So he wears many hats.
Yeah, I used to have a roommate that was exactly like that.
Yeah,
and like we used to do like production stuff in our living room, and he would just take stuff and he would like set it all up for me, and he'd just be like, okay, go, and it was amazing.
Yeah,
it's like
very useful to have around.
Yeah. We need more people like you in the world.
Like I'm somewhat tech savvy, like because we do all our own production and stuff, but there's a lot of things that are like sort of beyond my ability to confront, because I'm just like, I have no idea how to do that. And there's been a lot of times where Kwasi's just like right before you came here, for instance, we were figuring out how to sync up the lights with the backtracks and the tempo of the other songs in our show, and I was like, I would love to be able to do that, but I don't even know where to start to figure that out. So fortunately, we have Kwasi, who's the man.
Awesome.
Yeah.
This is me giving a thumbs up.
So you guys are a 4-piece band then?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, we are now, I should say. Like,
okay.
It's been kind of a strange journey so far, because like I started, like I said, just kind of recording things on my own, and then I'd get the odd performance opportunity. Like I was based in Lethbridge at this time, and the music director, or the guy who runs all like the live shows and stuff, was this guy named Riley Miller, and he gave me an opportunity to play like their last class bash thing. So he just like a month prior to that was like, hey man, do you want to play? Because I had sat down with him and talked about music marketing and stuff. He was pretty knowledgeable with that stuff. And he just like gave me the offer. I was like, but let me just go find all the musicians really quick. So I just kind of like ring up a group of musicians. I had a guy named AJ Jameson play with me, who's still based in Lethbridge, really good vocalist. Another guy named Joel Bascaran, who's a really good like gospel drummer and stuff, also based in Lethbridge. And then a guy named Matt, who's a great jazz bassist, whose name escapes me, and my other buddy Martin Suarez, who's also like kind of like a Kwasi, but not quite as tech savvy. So now this is kind of the first time we've had like a good solid group. But yeah, it's a quartet, and that was how you answer a question really long.
As a podcast host, I love it when people answer questions really long because it makes my job a lot easier. So
Yeah, that makes sense.
yeah, the worst podcasts are when you like ask a question and they're just like, yeah. And then they just sit there and there's a
Yeses
little bit of...
and no's.
Yeah. It's like, elaborate, please.
Speaking in Morse code.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to get this out of the way, I guess for those listening, how would you guys kind of describe your music that you make?
Uh-oh. That question's hard.
Whatever we feel like throwing at the wall that day.
It's hard to quantify into being like, we are this genre, and I guess I'll let you talk a little bit about what we've done so far. But.
Yeah. I mean, what in 2020 so far, we have done kind of straight standard stock rock. Your typical guitar, bass, vocals, and drums. Then we've got a lot of stuff with keys. More almost ballad style. It's not like rock ballads, but definitely that instrumentation.
If I had to put us into one box, I would probably say we're like modern power pop.
Okay.
Power pop being like, we have a lot of songs that are sort of in like a traditional pop 4 structure, but we definitely put like more modern production into it, and we have some keys and stuff like that. But we have some outliers as well. Like we just released an EP yesterday on the 30th, and we have a track on there called Hymn, which is Kwasi was probably about half that song because I just had a little guitar riff that I wanted to do and like a general chord progression. And I knew I wanted to turn it into something, but I didn't know what. And I ended up sending it to Kwasi, and he put a bunch of sort of like ambient style production onto it.
I don't think you even sent it to me. I think you just had it in the Google Drive as an idea.
Yeah, I think you're right.
I was just digging through one day, and then it was like, oh, this is kind of a cool thing. And I just threw the little riff into Logic.
Yeah.
Slapped on some drums, and then I slapped on a whole bunch of crazy like rhythmic delays on the drums as well, and it just wound up creating this really cool effect. It's like, oh, this is so cool.
Yeah, so like that's not a rock song at all, I would say.
That song actually, we don't have a live band recording of it yet. That song actually started in the box, and we actually have a completely different version for our live set now because it started as an electronic project, and now we've turned it back into a rock song after the fact.
Yeah,
which I think is so much fun because that's part of what I love about creating with Howells is just we have this way of throwing stuff at the wall and then coming up with 3 or 4 different ways of interpreting the same material, and we just get that much more musical mileage out of it.
Yeah, like I feel super like blessed to have you and the rest of the guys in the band too, because like you guys have a few years on me, but like you're all, as a result, I've learned a lot playing with you guys because you're like more seasoned in terms of like playing live and collaborating with other people than I am. So it's been really cool to do that. Like, and with that song, something that we did that was cool is that like after we had finished the production of it and it was kind of recorded and finished, we were trying to figure out how we were going to do it live because there's quite a lot of production, and it's, like I said, really not a rock song, and we weren't sure, like, how is our drummer going to contribute to this, because there's a lot of parts in the song that don't have drums or electronic drums, and we just kind of jammed it out until we found like a live version of it. So I'm really excited to actually record that and kind of release an alternate version, because I think it's really like it's a different song, but it's really cool. So that's been super rewarding as well, just like figuring things like that out with you guys.
And I think, as far as what genre do we fit in? Like, yeah, we've got that electro pop. Whatever.
Yeah,
I mean, it's like electronic rock, I would call it.
Yeah, there's definitely rock
think
influences for sure.
The beauty of it is that it spans, or it straddles enough genres that we can do remixes. Like, we have remixes and stuff going on. I've remixed like half of our EP already.
Yeah,
just for fun, right? It's just like, oh, what else can we do? But it's that fact that we can go, like, we can morph from one genre to another. It's like, okay, we want it more rock, we want it more electronic, we want it more this, more that.
Yeah.
You know, and we can throw in like weird jazz chords or jazz progressions as well, but they all kind of morph back to become this chameleon. So I think that's the
Cody,
fun about it.
I'm sure that you've experienced this now. I was just talking with somebody yesterday about how it's so like the way that you talk about music with people nowadays is a lot different than it was 10 years ago.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And like, 10 years ago, you might be able to ask somebody, oh, what kind of music you like? And they might say, I like pop or I like rock. But it seems like now people never give one answer. They're like, oh, I listen to a little bit of this and a little bit of this. It's like everyone's kind of listening to everything now.
Yeah, there's nobody out there who's just listening to. Well, maybe there are, but I haven't met a lot of people who are listening to one genre of music. You know what I mean? It's most people. You ask them what kind of music do they like, and it's like mostly the answer you get is everything but country.
Yeah. So to counter it, I have met quite a few people who only listen to one genre.
Yeah.
But they're 12.
Yeah.
They don't even know what the genre is that they're listening to.
Yeah.
It's just their Spotify playlist, and that's it, right?
Yeah.
I'm wondering if that's why that our music tastes are becoming like more like a varied, is because the way that we listen to music is a lot different now, because it's algorithmically generated by playlists and stuff, opposed to flicking on the rock radio station or the pop radio station.
Yeah.
Or going and buying a physical disc or a cassette that has one style of music from one artist on it, right?
Yeah. Like most people, the way that we consume music now is most people, I think, are using Spotify, right? And yeah, like Spotify is both an amazing thing and like, I don't know. Well, I shouldn't say a terrible thing, but
there's definitely been positives and negatives.
It has its drawbacks. Yeah, it definitely has its drawbacks. But because I've always been like an album person. I love an album. I love listening from start to finish of an album. Yeah, and it's really hard to do that with Spotify because it is also because I'm probably one of the only people in the world who's not paying for Spotify. But
well, one of the dangers, I would say, of Spotify is that it's changing the way that people listen to music, and it's rewarding certain types of music releases. So like the algorithm rewards consistent releases. So as an artist, it's often more beneficial to be releasing a single per month than it is to release a 12-track album once a year.
Yeah. And I've talked to people about that, and they've switched the way that they do release music to that format. They're releasing more singles, and then say at the end of the year they'll release an album, but it's just a collection of those singles, right? Because why sink a year of your time into an album that's only going to get hype for like maybe a month? Yeah, when you can be getting consistent hype for each single that you release.
Yeah, it's like the return on investment isn't what it used to be, and unfortunately, it's great that technology has basically lowered the bar to enter into music, but it's also created so much content, and that's made marketing even more important than it used to be, because to stand out, to cut through the noise is the hardest I think it's ever been. So you really have to take some of those things into consideration when you're making music, because it is going to affect how many people hear your music.
Yeah, no, for sure.
It's hard as well because I think, it takes so much more front end planning on the part of the band, like with the whole releasing a single instead of an album. I'm looking at, Dark Side of the Moon, or like anything Genesis did, or Rush, where you have these concept albums where you've got collections that are meant to be listened to as an album start to finish, and they're meant to be experienced as one sonic journey. And that I think that is one of the detriments of modern music platforms right now, is we've lost that whole side A, side B mentality, the break in the middle, flipping over the cassette where it's like, okay, that is the pause, like it is a very different landscape now. And the technology does drive how we listen. Absolutely.
It's like the movie experience is different now too, right? They don't have intermissions, and it's like a different watching experience. Well, it changed the art form a bit.
You watch movies from like the 80s and stuff like that, and there are like scenes in there that just like don't drive the storyline anywhere. They're just like hanging out and stuff, and you're like, what was the point of that scene? Because that would never exist in a movie today.
Yeah, it's so true.
Because I don't know if it's like people's attention span, but like it always has to be like go, But just so everybody is clear, there are still some of us out there who fucking love an album.
That's
so
Yeah, don't forget.
please make music for us because, man, I really, really appreciate like a good album.
Oh
Like,
yeah, you know what? To be honest, I think that everybody does. But
Yeah.
another thing is that like because of social media and other technology, I think people's attention spans are shrinking in terms of content because it's a lot more rewarding to find one thing you're like, oh cool, that made me feel good. Let me go and try to find something else that makes me. It's like sort of like an instant dopamine hit, and you're just trying to recreate that feeling and like confront sitting down and being like, wow, this album's 55 minutes. Let's go.
You definitely have to be trained to learn how to appreciate it these days.
But I think a lot of people who didn't grow up like when you had to listen through an album, they are missing out on like some great things about listening to music. Like one of my favorite things is when you're familiar with an artist and like some of their big songs and you're like, I'm going to check these guys out more. Oh, here's this album and I like a couple of songs and I'll listen through. And then you listen through and you're like, oh, I've never heard this song before. And it just like hits you the hardest out of all of them. And it's not necessarily the most popular one, but to you, it's just like so impactful. Like that's something that I'm super grateful for and has affect me musically as well. So that's definitely been a necessity for me.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's crazy how technology has like changed the way that we like listen to music and how we appreciate music and stuff. And like I feel like I'm kind of in like one foot in the oldies style and then one foot in the, because I'm 30, so it's like I was kind of before the internet slightly. You know what I mean?
It's like right on the cusp. I feel that way as well.
Now I just feel like an old man. So. And 10 years pre-internet.
You're kind of like in between me and Kwasi, so you're like right in the middle.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
But like you did mention it a little bit, like how you kind of have to be on your social media game now.
Yeah.
I would say that you guys do have like a very kind of like cohesive brand, you know what I mean? And like it kind of sucks that you have to talk about a band as like being a brand nowadays, but like that's kind of what it is, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it absolutely is. I mean, like it's different now because like back in the day when record labels were like the doorkeepers to the industry, there was obviously like a lot of problems with that, but one of the great things is that if you were lucky enough to get picked up, the band or the artist could just kind of focus on the music, and then you'd have somebody else handling the business, because it is a business.
Yeah.
They'd have somebody else handling the marketing and the branding and the PR and all that stuff. But now that, like I said earlier, the bar has been lowered to enter in, there's so many people who, like us, are kind of doing everything themselves, like self-managed and handling their own production and marketing and all that stuff. And like, if you can hand off responsibility, it's super helpful. But like a lot of the time when you're starting out, you're going to have to keep those things in mind because like you are a brand, and like if you want to be legitimate and appear legitimate, like you have to take those things into consideration. But I thank you, by the way, for saying that we have, because I do like keep that in mind. I'm like, have like, even with our music, like I said, we have a lot of different influences, but I think that with this last album specifically, now that I'm, collaborating with you guys, like we really found a much more cohesive voice than I had noticed on any of the other prior releases that I had done. So it's just with time, I think we're slowly sort of finding our voice as artists and finding our image as a brand and all that stuff, and figuring out what we want to say and that sort of thing.
Yeah, for sure. I would just say like, I noticed just like looking through like your last couple EPs and stuff, like all the artwork is very like cohesive, and it's all like very similar, and it has that cool like, I don't know, like retro like neon flair to it or something, which I really like dig. It's like real cool artwork. So
well, actually the guy who did that is this guy named Andrew Page. He's a tattoo artist out of Lethbridge. I can't remember the tattoo studio he works out at, which is bad because these two tattoos actually he gave me in that place. But yeah, that's how I met him. So I was like, wow, I love this guy's art. So I asked him if he wanted to do the covers for the first and second, and I think that was good because, like I said, I did those prior to meeting Kwasi and the rest of the guys, and like that was sort of still my own project. And the reason I rebranded as we were gonna do this new release is because we're basically a new band now. So I figured, new band, new image, new everything. So. Yeah.
Awesome. Touched on it a little, like, so what are some of your guys' influences? I'm just kind of curious to hear, because like I hear like from listening to your like most recent EP, the one that you released yesterday, like I hear some certain things that I think.
Oh, I'll be interested to hear that as well. Why don't you start?
So I would like to.
Going?
I'd be interested to hear what your influences are.
Where on earth do I even start? Man, I mean, like in high school, I was like, the punk rock, hard rock, anything with the word rock in it that was not light or soft.
Oh, we should also specify that Kwasi plays literally all the instruments. Like you play bass in the band, but like you have a degree in like guitar performance, don't you?
I have well, actually, my degree is actually in history and theory, music history and theory. So yeah, like classical guitar was my instrument at university, but
Right.
I actually have a degree in the theoretical side, which is probably why I love all the tech stuff now, because it's
and you can burn like 8 hours just like playing with analog synthesizers too.
Yeah.
So
Oh man, don't get me started on analog synthesizers because I will not stop.
But you started with rock, eh?
Yeah, well, rock and then techno. So I mean, like back in the day, it was like Eiffel 65 and
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
like that as well, right? But and then kind of moving is like ATB and Tiesto, Darude, and like groups like Project 86 or Under Oath. And I think actually that was probably one of my first concept albums that I really understood as a concept album was Project 86's Truthless Heroes, which was essentially, as the lead singer called it, he said it was a story told in 13 chapters with 4 commercials. So there's 17
that's cool.
tracks. And yeah, there was like little segues in between. But the entire thing, it was like the story of this kid who's born into this world of commercialism, and it's him growing up and all of the different influences of the world and different people telling him different things and his experiences, and he comes to the end of his life kind of reflecting back on everything he's learned, and it's like crazy powerful. And it was like, man, like I want to make something like that. And
That's
I think
awesome.
that was a huge influence for me. So I
Wicked.
started learning guitar in high school, and like it's like I'm going to be like Project 86, and then like Linkin Park and bands like that started coming out with like the hybridized. It's like the electronic and the rock together, and
Yeah, Linkin Park definitely messed a lot of people up with that. They're like, what is happening?
but it was funny because like there was that side of me, but at the same time there's like all the classical influence and the jazz influence. Like all the reggae influence. My dad he's been doing a radio show for eons.
He does
right?
radio show too?
Oh yeah. He's on CKUA.
Oh,
on
no way.
Saturday. He's on probably right now. Oh no, his show just ended.
That's hilarious.
Saturdays 1 till 3 on CKUA. Tune in to Leo Cripps for Journeys.
Was he doing
Shameless
that?
plug.
Was he doing that before Reggae Fest?
He was actually on another show at CJSW, the university station called
Yeah, yeah.
Caribbean Link Up.
Yo, shout out to CJSW.
Yeah.
They do a lot of awesome stuff for local bands.
They
And one of
do.
the things that they just did for us and a few other bands is that they'll send all of your EPs. If you burn like a bunch of EPs, they'll send them out to all other college radio stations. So if local bands don't know that, get on that. It's super helpful. Thank you, CJSW.
Woo!
Yeah.
Support local. But so my dad did like a whole bunch of reggae shows, still does that. And
So you're into reggae too?
so, well, I mean, it was just kind of by default. I mean,
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I'm like the biggest reggae guy, but
Is your dad from Jamaica?
yes, yeah.
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 Okay. Cool.
Straight from the island. So, but I mean, it's like I have that influence just sitting back there. So I think that's, you know that South Park episode? Like I never watched South Park, but I know this clip because like everyone has to show it to me. Or it's like the regular 4 are all there and
Yeah.
they're like want to start a band.
Oh,
They're
God,
talking to
yes.
the black friend. And it's like, okay, man, you're gonna have to go play bass. It's like, dude, I don't know how to play the bass. I don't even own a bass. Dude, we've been over this. You're black. Like, go to your dad's basement. You'll find a bass. And like then the kid goes. He's like, hey, what do you know? There was a bass in my dad's basement, right? All right, now give me a sweet, tasty lick, dude. I don't know how to play. We've been over this. You black. And then the kid starts playing. And like he just flashes out this crazy sweet lick just automatically, right?
Did you find a bass in your dad's basement, Kwasi?
No, I had to go buy mine, but my
So not all stereotypes are true, kids.
yeah, no. For me to when I got my bass, actually, it was because I just decided one day it's like, you know what, I need a bass. I went to the store, got a bass, like just straight up, and it's still the same one I play today. It's my very first bass.
That was your first bass?
first
Dude, you got the
bass.
nicest bass as your first bass.
Yeah, it was a pretty sweet thing. And I brought it home, no idea how to play it. So I just typed in like bass lessons on YouTube, and Victor Wooten was the first thing to show up.
That's a good
so
first.
It's just like
first
Okay.
guy to try.
So yeah, I had half an hour with Victor Wooten, and then it's like, okay, like I'm on my way here. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what shipped me off. I mean,
So what was the name of that band that you said was really influential?
Project 86.
Project 86. Yeah, I don't know if you're familiar with them. I should
Andrew
check them out.
Schwab and all the members that have been through that band, but they've been going for a long time now. So
Right on.
I don't even know if they're still going, but I hope they are. I hope they are, because I haven't listened to them in a while. I should boot them back up again.
Yeah, I was kind of like, I don't know if this is the case with everybody, but it seems like a lot of people kind of start with rock, or at least a lot of people in bands. So that was kind of my story as well. Like, I started out actually playing piano because my dad's a pianist, and then I had a friend when I was about 9 who got a guitar and like got pretty good pretty fast, and I started playing with him. And like a year later, my parents got me a little classical guitar, and I just kind of self-taught myself for a while, and I started to get into bands like, at first the classics, Iron Maiden and Metallica and stuff, and then I started to get into a little bit more modern stuff like Avenged Sevenfold when I was like 13. They were super influential on me because that was the first time I saw like a band, like a group of guys. I remember I watched their documentary All Access, and like just was like kind of them as they were coming up as a band, and like what that looked like being a touring band and stuff. And that was the first time I watched, and I was like, oh my god, I want to do that. So that was pretty influential on me. And then like a lot of like there's some good Canadian bands too that definitely like influenced me musically. Like Billy Talent was a big one.
Oh yeah,
Billy Talent's awesome.
Oh yeah, I think I've been to like 5 of their shows or something. And some of the guys that used to play with them too, Alexis on Fire. And then I think probably, when I was like 18 or 19, I started to get into more electronic music, and that was sort of what started to pique my interest in terms of production. I found a guy who's actually my age named Madion, and he had put out some singles, and I was like, whoa, this is really cool. It was the first time I actually took any interest in electronic music. Before that, I was like, no, I like rock. And then, I started to kind of delve deeper into the electronic side of things, and wanted to start producing, because I was like, well, I can't make these sounds with a guitar or a piano or my voice, so I'm going to have to start to figure out how to use the computer to do that. And that's kind of what started learning how to record and produce and all that stuff, which Kwasi has since helped me learn even more about. But then when I started to take my music career a little bit more seriously a few years ago, my buddy sent me a song by the 1975, and I delved into their first album. And no, actually I didn't. I just listened to their singles, and then they came out with a second album. And I was pretty impressed. Like I really liked that they, like, that started to get me thinking about like branding and music as a business, because they had this whole, it wasn't just their music, like they had a whole specific aesthetic for like the first and second album, and then they had like all this art, and sort of it was like a huge world. And I remember they put out a couple singles from their second album. They came out with Somebody Else, and I was like, whoa, this is dope. So I went to a show of theirs in 2016, and they have like a really comprehensive light show and stuff, and it just sort of like expanded on the aesthetic that they had already sort of built, and on the world that they were kind of creating through their music and image and stuff. And I went to their show, and I was like, whoa, I'm not thinking big enough, because I realized that these guys just had like this entire sort of community and like I said, like image and sort of branding around them, and that really inspired me just in terms of that, and being like, oh, like you can create like such a, and through the music videos as well. Like there's like, you can create an entire world through your art and through your music. So that was like, at that time, I think I was like 21 or 22. And that was sort of like the next push I had, where I was like, okay, I got to like take this seriously, because there's a lot you can do with your art. So those are probably like the big sort of moments in the journey so far.
Yeah.
Were those bands. Yeah. Billy Talent, those guys. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, I feel like, I don't know, a lot of people, especially people who kind of like are in the, like start playing music, Billy Talent is a huge thing for them. Like,
yeah.
I remember when the first Billy Talent album came out when I was in like junior high or whatever, and it was just like...
You guys are so young. I remember when I was working at my first job and Billy Talent's first album came out.
Yeah. So, like, it's... But like, it's interesting that you guys have like kind of those heavier influences too, because you can definitely hear that in the EP that you just released. Like,
yeah,
there's some points in the EP that when I was listening to it, it was just kind of like This is like almost like a slowed down like metal riff almost, and it's like heavy and it's cool, but it's like groovy and slow too. Like it's like some neat points like that.
And our drummer Jordan is like a big metalhead.
Yeah, he's got the double kick running there as well, which I find hilarious that we've got a double kick bass drum pedal happening in like electropop stuff, right? But
so it's cool to kind of get that influence in there too. And actually, we've basically written all the stuff for the next EP and have started recording it. And in that EP, we have some like really heavy moments compared to the last one. So it's cool and it's fun getting to span the gambit because like we all have different backgrounds in the band.
Yeah. And I guess that's like kind of beneficial coming together as a group and like it's creating something that you wouldn't necessarily be able to create on your own.
Yeah,
I think that's one of the greatest things about the four of us creating music together is we each have our own kind of mindset and approach to our playing and our instrumentation. And because of that, you know, when we start bouncing ideas off of each other, we wind up with something where it's just like, oh, that's super cool because, you know, you try coming up with the coolest riff that you can, but then somebody else adds something that you wouldn't have been able to think of. Yeah. And then it's like, oh man, it's like just elevates everything. And when you get that happening, you know, times 4, of course, it's incredible at that point. So.
Yeah, it's just like a special thing that you can't get on your own. And that feeling is like one of my favorite things, right? So that's why I wanted to like create an actual group too, is because like, I like writing stuff on my own. Like I don't hate it or anything, but like I just felt like there's so much more that we can do as a group. And obviously, like I learned way more working with you guys than I would by myself ever. So yeah, I think it's my favorite thing for sure.
No, definitely. Like collaboration is one of the, like you said, there's no other feeling like it when you guys are all like in sync and you just like hit that jam and you're all just like vibing off of each other and like you're making something that sounds super, like that is one of the coolest feelings, and I'm just getting like goosebumps thinking about it. Like
that's the best.
I think that's basically how our EP was out yesterday, and like we basically have the next EP written, but it basically was written just with us jamming stuff out. It's like, hey, I got a cool idea. It's like, okay, well, I'll add something to that, and we run it through a couple times, and
that's the dream too, because it's also a lot less work. Like if for example, like I'll have a chord progression, I'll bring it and be like, hey guys, I have this thing that I think we could build something around, and then I'll just play it, and then we'll just write it, and it's like, great, there it is, it's done. So it's the best.
Yeah, and I really dig bands like you guys because like you don't fit into any genre and you do take influences from all the genres, you know, and it makes interesting music. You know, like I've only listened to your most recent EP, but I mean, it makes it so that maybe your next EP is going to sound completely different.
Yeah, and I mean, like we are a young band still. Like we haven't been playing together for a ton of time, so we're still, I think, finding our voice.
Now, right?
Yeah, less than a year,
and that includes the 6-month hiatus of
exactly.
COVID,
so like we're just recording and stuff at that point, which we did remotely mostly. So, but yeah, like I think we're still finding our voice to some extent as a band, but like that's something I'm really looking forward to as well. Is just like what that's going to turn into as time goes on, and like as much of a pain in the ass as it makes it when we're marketing, because we don't like, it's hard to choose like what bands we sound like or like who we're going to market to, because we have a pretty like vast array of influences, but like it's also what makes it fun and like what makes me look forward to the newest stuff, because I'm like, I don't really know where it's going to go. Like I have an idea because I know myself and you guys musically, but like that's kind of what's exciting for me, is like just kind of seeing what it's going to turn into, right?
Cool. So you said that you kind of have the next EP like kind of like already down and stuff like that. So is there a reason that you guys are going from EP to EP, or is there going to be maybe a full-length album at some point? Or
I would say like my thoughts for this is like, firstly, we had touched on how it's a little bit more rewarding in terms of releasing music to release small amounts more consistently. So that was something that I had in mind, like just for the release schedule. Like I handle a lot of the marketing right now, so I'm trying to think like when we should release things. And I'm having like, I mean, I'm still learning too. Like one thing that we did for this album that I wouldn't do again is like we released a single on September 25th, Alone in Your Room, and then 2 weeks later I released the next single, Him, which is like the kind of one that doesn't fit in as much as the
The
others.
oddball,
It's not rock at all. But I found that was a little bit too recent to release another single. So like I'm still learning, but like I think it's cool to release EPs right now because every time we have a group of like 4 or 5 songs, then we can release, you know, a single one month, a single the next month, and then drop like the whole album, and you get like 3 new songs at once. So it's kind of like my solution for liking albums and wanting to keep doing kind of larger format releases, but still taking advantage of the things that streaming platforms do to reward consistent releases. But to answer your question, is there going to be a full-length album eventually? Yes.
Yeah.
I think just to add on the EP thing as well, it kind of, in a sense, goes back to that whole side A, side B. You know, kind of what we've played around with is that, you know, Efflorescence, we just released it, that's our side A. And then we tie in, our next EP ties back to Efflorescence somehow. So
Yeah.
it's in a sense like you're getting the full-length album, but it's in 2 parts, just extended across time. So,
And it's also a way that we can
juggle.
reward our listeners because it's sort of like we're going to have not inside jokes, but things that you're only going to understand on the next EP if you've heard the one that we just released yesterday, Efflorescence. Like we really want to tie those two together, kind of like I did for the first 2 EPs that I released on my own. Like they were both sort of they were a pair, you know, like the art was similar. I were written around a similar thing, and like they were both sort of me finding my voice as an artist. And like this last EP, and I think the next one is also going to be sort of really tie into each other because it's like us as a band finding our voice and like definitely kind of growing to the next phase. But we've already kind of made plans for how we're going to tie them in like musically and like aesthetically with the art and like some video ideas and stuff. So yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
And then that means, you know, when we're done with that, then hey, maybe we can take it in a totally different direction if we feel like it. But
Exactly.
yeah, gives us options.
Yeah, I guess that is kind of the benefit of releasing smaller chunks of music. It's like if you do want to go in a completely different direction, it's harder to come up with a large quantity of songs that all kind of fit together and like vibe together and stuff like that. So
It is. And like, I don't think we're ever going to release like a jazz album, but you know, we might have.
No Jazz Odyssey. You never told me that when I joined.
Sorry, man. I don't know about the Jazz Odyssey yet. We could get there. You never know with this band, but like we might have like this was.
What am I supposed to do with all my saxophones?
Dude, I love the saxophone. We'll throw it in. Like this last album or EP and the one that's coming up, there's like a good amount of rock influences, like especially between the drummer. Like he does mostly like a traditional drum kit, but like I really enjoy electronic production as well, which like we did throw in here and there, like on the mixes on the new EP, but like down the road we might have like more of that. We don't know, like if we want to go into another direction or experiment, we might have like a set of songs that are going to be more electronic or something else. I don't know. So yeah, like you said, it is.
Listen to the Arctangent remixes.
That's right.
Listen to Arctangent.
Yeah, no, he's
my shameless plug. I may as well do it here. So I have my own music projects as well,
Yeah.
which is why I know so much about the whole electronic and tech stuff. So
Yeah, he does a lot
I
of
release
electronic music.
under Arctangent, which is my own project, but I then use that skill set to remix the music that we do for Howells.
Yeah, and you've also used it just while like producing the actual regular tracks too. Like,
that as well, yes.
yeah, which has been awesome because like I'll have sort of an idea of like, okay, I want to put some like electronic influence in here, but like, what do you think? And then he'll always have lots of ideas for stuff we can do.
awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, like some of my like favorite music that's been released within the past 5 years or whatever is that combination of like analog and electronic,
Yeah.
like when it's done well, it's some of the coolest music that you can like listen to. Like, you take electronic production and you mix it with like a fucking orchestra or whatever, and you play it over top of each other, and it's just like
Totally.
I think that that's something that technology has allowed us to do, and it's cool to see like the cool like music that has come out of like the mix of analog and electronic.
Yeah, and like that's a big thing that I was influenced by as well. Is like I heard bands like that, and I was always impressed, and I liked how there were artists who were sort of pushing the musical genre, the style. It's like I haven't heard this before, and I wanted to be part of that. I wanted to be part of somebody who was experimenting and like trying to push the music and the genres like to places they haven't been yet. And like one of my ultimate dreams would be like if I had something to do with creating like a new genre of music.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's going to be new genres of music eventually. I don't know what they're going to be, but like I didn't want to be somebody who was just sort of like doing the same old. Like I want to at least try to contribute to whatever the next form of music is going to be. So
next practice, we're going to take my 3 output guitar, run it through 3 different amps, run that signal chain back through that analog modular that I got, get the yo-yo filter going on.
This is why I love Kwasi.
Play the guitar with a violin bow.
Kwasi's got all the technology, so there's no shortage of opportunities to experiment with stuff like that.
Nice.
Yeah, man. So when you listened to the EP, did you have like ideas of what our influences might be?
Like I touched on a little bit, I knew that there was probably some sort of like heavier rock or metal influence on there, because just some of the riffs off there were, like I said, they were very like metal-esque in some of the guitar bits, and just like I said, they were like kind of almost like slow, kind of like metal riffs that you would find. Obviously there's some like electronic influence on there as well, with like just the production of it and stuff like that. Definitely a little bit of pop for sure, because it does sound very like spacey and pop. But that's kind of like my first impressions of the album for sure.
Well, that sounds like it nailed it on the head. So at least we're kind of doing something right.
Like it is very different, and it's very unique though for sure. Like it's not. Awesome. I haven't heard a lot. Like there are some bands in the local scene kind of doing what you're doing, but nothing exactly like what you're doing.
Thanks, man.
Yeah. So it's very unique for sure.
That means we're doing something right if we're finding that unique space. Yes, we own that space now.
Yeah, totally. So that's awesome.
It's definitely unique, but it's still like
familiar
consumable.
In some sense,
like it's consumable for like your average person. You know what I mean? Like anybody could listen to it and be like, oh, like I can get down with this. It's not just like one of those kind of genres that's like super technical and only the most dedicated music fans are going to be into it. You know what I mean?
And like I have some artists that I like who are like that, but like I would say as an artist myself, at least with Howells, I wouldn't want us to be quite that far off into, artistically another dimension where it's like there's going to be a very, very small amount of people who enjoy this, but they'll probably love it. Like I want to push like artistically as far as we can go, but still remain like palatable, because that's just, I don't know. I want it to be like a fun thing, and I want like the shows to be fun and that. And I think to some extent we have to remain like, there has to be that familiarity. So thank you for the kind words, man.
Yeah, of course.
I have to say, like, out of all the musical projects I've worked on, like, this is the one where I find myself whistling the tunes the most, Like, it's just like, we've got earworms, right? We've got earworms, but they're good earworms, right? Like, I'm not stuck like, oh my goodness, I need to go listen to something else to get this out of my head. It's like this is something you can hum along to. It's simple enough, but it's still like, oh yeah, now it's worth listening to a second or third time.
And that's why I think like every once in a while, like with Him, which is kind of our less poppy track, less alternative, it's fun to do that too, because it's like it's not as poppy and catchy as like a song like Alone in Your Room is, but like it allows us to sort of indulge creatively and artistically, and like I think that even though we do go off farther in that direction, it still sort of fits in with the rest of the song. So it's nice to have the opportunity to at least do that here and there.
Yeah, for sure. And I love it when bands do something unexpected, like when you're watching a band live and they've mostly been playing like maybe some sort of like pop set or something like that, and then they randomly break out into something that's just completely different. Like they do throw in something that's a bit heavier or something. It's one of my favorite things as a music fan, is just like when bands do stuff that's not expected.
Totally.
I'm
the same way.
Whole point of music, I mean, even going back to like theory, the whole thought of consonance and dissonance, right? Tension and resolution. I mean, you can take that microcosm and go, 1 chord to the 5 and back, but you can expand that into 2 songs next to each other in a concert. It's the same kind of idea, right?
And I think that's one of the benefits of learning theory on a deep level like you have, and I did do, not quite to the extent that you did, but like you can have those sort of natural understanding of music where you're like, it feels good when I have a really easy to listen to part here and then a hard one, and then it makes the easy one even more gratifying when it comes along. That's like basically what consonance and dissonance is.
Yeah.
So it's
different scale levels essentially, right?
Yeah. So it's been nice working with you because of that as well, is because you kind of have like the very formal understanding of theory as well, so we can like analyze the stuff that we're doing and kind of look at how we're making the song more musical or more impactful, you know, if it's just, you know, going really quiet and then really loud or something like that.
Yeah,
Like,
even if it's just like small little tweaks in
like the Pixies were
production
Pixies were huge for that soft, loud, soft thing. So yeah, little things you can do to make the music more impactful.
Yeah, for sure. Do you guys feel like you have a little bit more control over kind of like the overall feel of how an EP gets released because you are doing all the production yourself?
Oh yeah, like we have ultimate control.
Yeah.
Really.
We had to do everything, so yeah.
Yeah, that's one of the blessings of the way technology is now, right?
Yeah,
like if this was the old days and we were lucky enough to get signed, then there'd be someone telling us, you can't do it like that
have to do it
because
like
it
this,
won't
yeah.
sell as well. And we'd have to say, okay.
It is a cool thing about technology, again, is like, because, you know, a band like you can exist, do it all yourself, you do everything yourself, it's totally DIY. Someone
Yeah.
like me can exist, putting out like some random show on the internet.
Exactly.
Like, you know, so
Yeah.
it's crazy the things that technology has allowed us to do. Yeah.
And one of the things that I like is that like I'm assuming the internet in theory is forever. Like, I mean, something could happen that wipes it all out, but like, I like that because now when I'm creating music, I'm thinking like, this is part of like the legacy of us, like as an artist, because this will be here for a really long time, the whole foreseeable future. And it'll just, anybody who has an internet connection will have access to like the art and the music that we're making. So it's cool to be like, well, this is just like one stop on like the journey of wherever the hell this band is going to end up going. So
We might wind up in a textbook one day, right?
that's right.
Textbook. Text PDF.
What not to do when you're a band. No, hopefully not that textbook.
Yeah. So have you guys done much live performance with this current lineup?
I
or-
have never performed with these guys yet.
No? Okay.
No,
Not
'cause,
outside
like,
of this room.
Yeah, I mean, right when Kwasi came was like a month and a half before COVID hit.
Yeah, pretty much. It was about February, end of January, early February.
Yeah,
that I
so,
came
like-
on. So yeah, we
Okay.
had maybe 6 weeks together, and I was just learning.
Yeah,
the
you're still
songs at
learning the
that point,
pieces.
so-
Yeah. So, needless to say, I'm really excited to play with these guys because back in the past, like I had mentioned, like I just get an opportunity to play, round up some guys, do our best, move on. But like we get like a few practices together, and now it's like we have backtracks. We're gonna have synchronized lights. Like it's like a real show now, a show that we could play in any venue if we were giving the opportunity, from like, you know, a small bar to like a stadium. Like it's that going to be that level of performance. So like I cannot wait for things to start opening up again and to start like testing out the show, because like we put a ton of work into not only how it's going to be musically but how it's going to be visually. Like I really want people to be able to have an experience that they can get immersed in, because like I still remember the few concerts I've been to that have like really impacted me, where it was just like such an immersive experience, and like the music was amazing, and like the show and like the lights and whatever, like those stay with you.
Yeah.
So yeah, I want to create that for people as well, and like I think that we're there now, so super stoked.
Just got a little bit more programming to do on the compy over there. I keep looking over at it. It's like, oh, but I was just working on those lights. Yeah, got the thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So is the live show going to be very different from what you guys have recorded, or?
No, it's gonna be pretty.
Well,
I mean,
him's
musically
going to be different.
Yeah, so
And
him
we can change up the set order, obviously.
Yeah.
Yes, but I mean, it's going to be pretty damn similar because like we have backtracks that we've gonna incorporate into the show, which means that it's going to be, you know, excluding a few songs like him and stuff, it's going to be very similar with, you know, maybe some liberties taken on the instruments we're playing as well, but like everything that's happening in the background. So it's going to be like same tempo, same sort of like vibe. We're going to really do our best to recreate the level of music sort of
Yeah, the
above,
level of production should be
the same or
top-notch
above.
still.
It's kind of the goal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think actually one thing that I was working on the other day is I want to start live streaming the practices we're having here, because it's like we have a professional sound setup going where like everything's running through a board, and we have like lights and stuff here, so I'm like, we can have really great sounding and looking shows here. So that's basically ready to go now as well. So we're probably going to start that in the near future, start live streaming, at least for 30 to 60 minutes every practice.
Oh, cool.
And that'll help us run through our sets and just help us as performers as well. So
Yeah, for
really
sure.
stoked about that.
It also like invites, feedback from an audience too.
Exactly.
Like if there is anything, and I know we were talking about it a little bit before we started recording, but Taken by Sanity.
Yeah.
I know that they're doing stuff like that right now. And
That's why I started following those guys, because they
Yeah.
were doing a ton of stuff like that. And I was like, this is awesome. Like very few people are doing that. So
Yeah. It's cool to see people it's cool to see bands adapt
Yeah.
to a pandemic world, like, in a time when you can't go out to the bar and go see a show with all your buds or whatever and
Yeah.
arm in arm, but like people, the musicians are adapting and like the music is still happening and they're still providing live performances that you can just like enjoy at home.
another guy who's doing an awesome job of that. I don't know if you've interviewed him. I think you have. His name's Marcus Trummer.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he's doing a really good job of that right now. His band's still doing like social distancing concerts, but he's doing a lot of live streams. They just had a single come out yesterday as well, and he was doing like a live sort of single release party, and he did like an hour set of just like playing just him, but it's cool to see him doing it. It's just like you got to just do it. That's it. And so I always see bands like that, and like I admire that. So
Yeah. That guy's a hustler too. Like,
he is.
He's dedicated to he's like, I'm going to be a musician.
he's also a monster fucking musician.
Oh, yeah.
He's a really good guitar player and singer.
He's really, really good. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, no, shout out Marcus Trummer. He's dope.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned like, you kind of like want to make your live performance like those performances that you used to see, the ones that really stuck with you. So maybe if you guys could give us like a couple of, live performances that have really stuck with you.
Sure. Kwasi, you got some?
Oh boy. Why don't you go first? Because I got to rack my brain for a second.
Okay, well, the first one that literally floored me was the first. I saw the 1975 and 2016, and they had an insane light show. Like they had 3 light pillars that had basically they were like screens, so they were square, and all around was a screen, and they would have different animations projecting on all of them, and also a giant screen behind the entire stage. So like for one of the songs, they all kind of turned into like a cityscape, and sometimes the pillars would be doing different types of movements than like the background, but it really like created a 3D feel for the environment, and like they had a different sort of light show or like different background aesthetic depending on the song, and it sort of would enhance what the song was trying to say or how it sounded. So it just really added like a huge level to the show, and I had never seen that before or really thought about that. And I just remember going there and was like, oh my god, like I had never thought of how much a show can enhance the music, and that one definitely floored me. That was the biggest, like most like holy shit moment I've had at a show.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. I've racked my brain. I've come up with 2. I've got one positive and one negative, actually.
Oh, I'm excited.
So the positive one, I think it was back about 2012. It was a Jesse Cook concert.
Yeah.
And he had just released his Blue Guitar Sessions album, which is still a fantastic album. One of my favorite albums. Like, Jesse Cook's great. It's hard to pick favorites, but that one's a great album. And he was doing that show, and it was, it wasn't crazy flashing lights or anything. It was very tasteful lights, just slow fades and everything, but just the sheer musicianship, right? Jesse Cook was playing with this guy named Chris Church, who he plays everything as well. Like, you hand him an instrument and he's just mastered it already, right? But just the sensitivity of the performance, and I mean, they're still running the wires and the backing and everything else under there, but they still had that genuine nature to it, and it was just such a fun show. The performers looked like they were having fun. It was awesome. It was just so memorable for me in that regard.
Yeah.
And then to contrast that, I hope I don't get on anyone's bad side for this, but I will never, ever support the Black Veil Brides, because what a
Oh, I know.
Disaster.
Who's the singer? Ollie Sykes? Is that no? That's
I don't
that's
even.
Bring Me the
I don't
Horizon.
even tell me what their names are. I don't want to know.
They're kind of like hard rock pretty boys for sure.
They're posers through and through. So my sister, she was about 15 at the time. So she needed the concert was at Mac Hall up at the UFC. So I had to go chaperone for her. So I took her to the show. It's her Christmas present. She got to go get tickets and stuff. So she's up at the front. She's moshing. I'm standing at the back, just
Not
livid.
having a good time.
disgusted, like vomiting in my mouth. It was
what
so
was
bad.
it? Tell me.
Everything. So first of all, it was supposed to be an all ages show, which it was not. And I just wanted to punch the lead singer in the face because he's talking about how he wants to like go and do like the after party and all kinds of stuff with all these girls in the mosh pit. I'm like, dude, my 15-year-old sister is in that mosh pit right now, and you are as old as I am. I'm 16 years older than my sister. So
no.
So I was like, dude, you're like a 30-something-year-old guy with like fake black paint on your fingernails. Like, you are a creep. I'm gonna hurt you.
Yeah, there's a line for sure.
And again, as a professional musician, like, I'm listening for stuff that probably the average concert goer might not be.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at this, I'm like, how are they running the sound? And I'm noticing that their sound is coming from the front of house guy holding an iPad and pushing play on that iPod.
Oh no.
Like, nothing that was coming through the speakers was being generated by the actual band. They were faking everything.
Oh my God.
They had like the headset mics faking it. They had the bass guitar. It's like, no, what you're playing, I am a bass player, and I can see what you're playing is not what I'm hearing. You're playing a fake bass. Everything was so fake. And by the end of the concert, when they were tearing it down, as like they want to make the stage show look amazing. And so what they did, they had this big wall of Marshall, like the 1960 A cabs, like the big 4x12 cabinets, double stacked. So like, one on the bottom, one on the top.
Oh my God, that's so many amps.
8 across, 16 4x12 Marshall cabs lining the back of the stage, right? Massive sound. And it was loud. The stupid hall was deafening.
Where were you? Mac Hall?
In Mac Hall, yeah. It was like well over 120 dB in there. It was insane.
Classic Mac Hall.
I'm glad that I had ear protection. My sister's probably deaf, but at the end of this concert, which I'm already thoroughly livid about, I'm watching the roadies start tearing down the stage, and they reach for one end of these Marshalls and begin peeling the poster off of the cardboard boxes.
Oh no!
Oh my goodness! There aren't even words. So I am happy to say that even though we're using backtracks, we are still playing our instruments live.
Yeah,
we can still screw it up.
Yeah,
we can still add stuff that
and don't worry, we will screw it up.
Yeah, don't worry.
That's why you come, baby.
We'll throw in a few mistakes just so that you know that we're playing live for real. But like, we still have that ability to improvise. We still have that ability to create on the fly. Which is clearly not what was happening with this other group. So
that's also a thing. Like, I think all of us kind of want to keep our artistic integrity, and I'm never worried about that because like, you guys have that same amount of priority as I do in terms of like there's certain things we need to do to get the show that we want to have, but like, we're never gonna not be playing our instruments because that's why we fucking do it. Like, why would you not play the instrument? That's why we're doing it.
It's like you're just a monkey up there dancing around in shiny leather pants.
I don't know. That's the most fun part to me is like the playing. So I don't know why you do it other ways.
Like, I feel like the thrill of performing is the possibility of you can eat shit. Like,
that's very true.
Like, you can screw it up, and like, that's what keeps you kind of going. That's why you get jittery when you get up on that stage. Like,
it's because you yourself are putting yourself out there. You are communicating. I mean, your instrument is essentially your voice that you're speaking with to the audience. So, I mean, in a sense, playing in a band is like public speaking. You still have something to say. If you're not actually saying anything, there's no fear, there's no worry because you're not actually responsible. So I think there's that onus of kind of liability, like, yes, this is us, right? We can do these things.
I think you kind of owe that to the audience too. Like, you really owe them a certain amount of vulnerability.
Absolutely.
Like, one, to be relatable, and two, like they're paying to come see you, right? Like they're not just gonna, if they want to hear the music, they'll just listen to the recordings.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
like they come for the experience and to connect, right?
It's one of my favorite things is when a band is up there playing and they play something that's like they're playing the song that's from an album, but they're playing it differently, or they're adding something and they're ad-libbing. Because like you said, if I wanted to just hear the music like it was on the album, I would just listen to the album at home.
Yeah.
Like, I'm comfortable. I don't have to go out. It's
beer's
awesome.
cheaper,
The
right?
beer's way cheaper. Like, I go out because I want to hear something like different. I want that experience.
That's the reward
of,
for going through the trouble of coming, right?
Exactly. I want to have that connection with the band. I want them to give me the energy that I, having the band up on stage, like they feed off of the crowd and the crowd feeds off of the band. So it's a feedback loop, Like, so, and that's what you pay for. Like, I feel like is that kind of energy and that feeling of you, the band, and being in that crowd, So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, there's that sense of flow or what's the other word they use? Like when you're like right in that state where you're in the zone. Flow is one of those.
Flow state's the one that I'm most
Yeah.
familiar with, but like
The one like just when you're up there and you are locked in and you're playing and like even the bandmates are feeding off of each other and feeding off like everything together, and it's that synergistic sense of euphoria really when you're in that space. Right?
and as an audience member too, like it's amazing to watch that as well.
Oh yeah, I mean you can definitely pick that up as an audience member when you see a band that's locked in, compared to a band where it's like, oh well, it's this guy and his 3 other paid members.
Yeah.
Absolutely. There's a band called Lost Cousins that I saw at the Gateway about a year ago. They're a newer band from Toronto. They just have 1 EP out, but they're fucking awesome. I didn't know who they were when I went to that show because they opened for Royal Tusk, and I knew Royal Tusk because I saw them randomly one time like a couple years earlier, and I was like, who are these guys? And that was actually, speaking about some stuff we touched on earlier, I knew some of their songs from the radio that were kind of poppy, and I went there and they had a lot of really heavy shit, which is awesome because they were good at it. But anyways, I went to go see these guys, and there was a band called Lost Cousins, and that's like probably the most, like that was one of the best shows I've ever seen. And they're just like a new band. Nobody had heard of them. And 5 members, you could tell, just locked in, and like the show was unreal. Like they sounded great, good light show. Like they're the shit. So yeah, check out Lost Cousins because they rip.
Yeah. It's like being in that moment where like you, like I said, when you know that it's not the music off the album and they are maybe they've practiced it, but it's improvising to you, you know what I mean? And there's like this one thing that's very clear in my mind. I was at this festival in like Costa Rica, and I was listening to this band play, and I knew the song, and they were playing one of my favorite songs. Yeah. And like right in the middle of it, they just went off on this like crazy improvisation, and it was like hip hop, and like it was just like insane. And it was like a 10-minute thing, and then they brought it around and finished off the song, and I was like, that was one of the coolest like musical experiences that I have ever seen.
Wow, that's wicked.
It was like so. The band's called Rising Appalachia, but yeah. I highly recommend you check them out.
Rising Appalachia,
yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? You asked me about impactful shows, and I actually forgot to mention, like, that Lost Cousins show that I saw a year ago, really, because, like, that was right as we were starting to, like, get more settled in as a band. We had our old bassist, and he actually, I think, had just left us. So I was like, God damn, I gotta find another bassist, which worked out.
You found an old bassist.
Thank God. Thank God. But, yeah, going to that
Happy
show.
birthday, by the way.
Oh, thanks, bro. Yeah, it's my birthday today. I went to that show and was not expecting much and was kind of bummed out because I was like, damn, I got to find another member. But that was like a huge motivator just watching those guys. They're like definitely have some rock influences and shoegaze and stuff. And they did an awesome job about recreating that live because like they had all 5 of them had mics, so huge sound, tons of harmonies. They had a sax player, like all this like reverby goodness, but it was also mixed great. So like it just sounded awesome, and you could really get enveloped in sort of the musical soundscape that they were creating. And that was just like, yeah, no, I still want to do this.
Nice.
Yeah.
Don't mean to put you guys on the spot or anything, but have you had any moments like that or experienced any shows like that with any maybe local bands, maybe less known bands and stuff like that?
Lost Cousins isn't a local band, but they're definitely less known. Let me think about bands from Calgary. I've only been in Calgary for like a year and a half.
Okay.
Do you have any off the top of your head?
Yeah. So before I was with Howells, I used to play in a band called Young Mike.
Okay.
Playing bass there as well. So, and we kind of toured the local dive scene. We did Verns and the Blind Beggar and stuff like that. And there were a couple. One was at Verns. I don't even know if these guys are still around, but they were called the Southern Hooligans, and like they were just so good. I don't even know how they were that good. The drummer was playing a kit. I swear he bought it at Toys R Us. It was like this dinky little 16-inch kick drum with a tom/snare and a single cymbal. It honestly looked like a toy, but he was drumming and he was doing backup vocals, and they just had a bass player and a singer. It was just a 3-piece, but they were so good, just like R&B styles. Amazing.
That's awesome.
Yeah, just fantastic. And there was another one at the Night Owl. Is it still called the Night Owl? I can't remember.
Night Owl
it
doesn't exist anymore.
It doesn't
but-
exist anymore. For good reason in this case. So we were scheduled to play as the opener. It was a 4-band lineup. So we were the first band up. And we were essentially opening for Celestial Ruin, which I guess their drummer was from Calgary, and so they were coming through. It was the drummer's birthday. They were doing this big, awesome tour and everything. The promoter apparently neglected to promote the show, and so I got there. I was the first one of our bandmates to show up, and Celestial Ruin was already there. They were doing their setup and everything. So like, okay, well, I'll go say hi to them and get set up. But as we got closer to the start date, it was like, where the heck are all the people? Like, nobody came. So when Young Mike went up, we had maybe 20 people in the audience. So that includes the other bands that were performing. By the time Celestial Ruin got up, there were 4 of us in the audience.
Oh, no.
There was nobody. It was me, one of my other bandmates, and 2 other ladies, and one of them was like insistent on dancing. It was hilarious.
Nice.
But the
Shout out to those people.
Yeah, and I mean, shout out to Celestial Ruin as well, because like these guys were like what's the word I'm looking for? Commensurate professionals. I think that's the word I'm looking for. My thesaurus is broken right now, but these guys were like top-notch professional. They played for 4 people like they would have played for 4,000 people. It was
awesome.
incredible. The lead singer, she had like the wind machine. They were kind of like a goth rock band.
Okay,
and
cool.
she was like still in full costume and like still doing like all the hand gestures and like singing out as though she was playing the Saddle Dome.
Amazing.
And the bass player, he was rocking out hard, just like it was incredible. It was like, wow, where is everybody? Like, so many people are missing this experience. So I think the rest of us, we actually got together, like we pooled the $20 we made collectively that night and bought one of their CDs.
Nice.
Because it was like, you guys deserve this $20. It was crazy.
Yeah.
So,
I feel like that's a mark of like true professionals is when they do, they play the same for 4 people as they would for crowds of thousands or hundreds or whatever.
They were an inspiration for sure on how to be that level of professionalism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't remember names of specific bands that I've seen, but there's a few musicians like Marcus Trummer. When I first came back to Calgary, he was like, I went to a jam and I saw him and I was like, this guy's fucking good. So he stuck out to me. And then I don't know the name of the band, but I used to go to a jam. I think it's still happening. Or I mean, it was pre-COVID, called Groove Theory.
Okay.
And I think that's run by Jamil still. And I used to go there like back in 2014 or 2015 or something. And I saw a girl named Kate Melvina who's still playing around. She does a lot of like R&B stuff. And she was also someone I was like, damn, she's really fucking good. I don't know who she's playing with right now. She's not super active on social media, but she's super good. I've seen her play with like a few different musicians. Those are both times where I've been really impressed with like local bands, local musicians. I don't even know if they were a band. Sometimes they just jump up with like random people and jam it out. And it's like, how's it this good?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's something about the kind of like the local scene too, is it's so friendly and like everybody's willing to collaborate and just kind of like get in on things. And I don't know, just kind of being like I don't play in a band or anything. I just do this podcast, and like
Yeah.
everybody's been so friendly and just inviting and accommodating, and like, you know, they see you at your show and they're like, oh, hey, how's it going? Like it's such a friendly, cool scene that I just like never thought that I would be a part of, and
That's
with this
awesome.
podcast I got like kind of involved in it. But
That's wicked. And I mean, it's small, so it's like, it's
Yeah.
good because that's how we're gonna grow it. Like that's another thing that I would love to to contribute to, like with our band Howells, is that I'd love to be somebody that helps grow the music scene in Calgary and like put it a little on the map more, right? Like that's the dream, like to be like the Nirvana who put like
Put Seattle on the
Seattle on the map, like,
Yeah.
and, you know, with grunge and all that. Like it'd be really awesome to contribute to your hometown, right?
yeah, no, totally.
Yeah, man.
Cool. I feel like we could sit here and, you know, talk forever, but we should probably wrap this up. So is there any kind of just final things that you guys want to throw out there?
Well, first of all, thanks for having us on the show, man. It was
Yeah,
a pleasure.
definitely. Thank you.
That was an awesome chat. And yeah, like check out the EP. It just came out yesterday. We would love that. It's my birthday today. That can be your birthday gift to me.
Nice. Cool. Well, I'll have like all the social media links and all the places where people can find your music. It'll all be in the episode notes as usual. So if you're wondering how you can connect with these guys, check out the episode notes. And thank you very much for taking the time to chat with me, guys.
Our
Cheers.
pleasure,
Thanks
my
so much,
man.
Cody.
Yeah, this was lots of fun.
Okay.
Awesome.
Also, I should note this is the first time that I didn't have to. I still brought everything, but I didn't have to, and it was amazing. So
We got you covered, man.
Hopefully, I mean, we'll listen back to this, but this podcast is a testament to Howell's working sound setup.
Yeah.
So this is all running through our gear.
yeah,
So
yeah.
better sound damn good.
Yeah, we hope so. We'll find out real soon, I guess.
yeah. Okay.
All
awesome.
right. Thanks, Cody.
Cheers. Thanks.
Thanks, guys.
Black and white city lights, nighttime. Follow me through the dark. You're mine. Black and white city lights, nighttime. Follow me through the dark. You're mine. Black and white city lights, nighttime. Follow me through the dark. You're mine.
If you like this episode of Groove Talk, why not leave a review? You can find us on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or pretty much anywhere that you listen to podcasts. Help us break through those evil algorithms and reach the most amount of glorious listeners that we possibly can. For up-to-date information on the show, you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And you can find us at FrogE Style Productions. For more ways to support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.